Welcome back to the Gruber Morning Show. This is the Tesla Roadster podcast. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning and welcome.
We have a special guest that will be joining us today in about 45 minutes to an hour or so. It's one of our customers, actually. He has been a Roadster owner, possibly even before I was, come to think of it.
I think he was, because he was talking to me yesterday, and he bought his first Roadster new in 2011.
Okay, definitely before me then, yeah. Mike Maloney, he is also an author, and he has a very popular YouTube site. He does investment advice, and his strengths are gold and silver and the alternative investment methods.
Yeah, well-known, fairly well-known author as well. Has several books to his credit, and looking forward to having him. He was fun to talk to yesterday. I'm looking forward to talking to him again.
And
today.
my God, does he know Roadsters? He actually took an Arctic White Roadster. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the VIN now. He'll tell us. 1183, I think. And he's a very tall guy. He's 6'2". So, and those guys have a hard time getting in and out of a Roadster. So he had it modified. He had a number of things done that most owners don't even dream of. He had the pedals actually extended into the chassis.
Okay.
And that, of course, required some, major retrofit underneath the car and in the frame. Then he shaved the door so that his legs would fit as he was getting in. So that's been sculpted. And he loves to canyon carve. He lived in the Malibu Hills for years, and he always found it annoying that glare would come off of off the dash at certain times of the day when the sun was low, I would imagine. And so anyway, he had black suede put on the interior of the car to reduce the amount of reflection. And his final annoyance was that when you turn, the headlights still shine straight ahead. And he had special lights installed behind the grill, motorcycle-type lights, that actually shine off to the sides. Now, he's going to tell you all about that. For those of you that own Roadsters, if you want to do some of the improvements that he did, he'll certainly tell you whether it's worth it, how much it costs, and whether he recommends it or not.
You know, I know that he, as he and I were talking yesterday, you talk about him liking to do the canyon carving. He's going to take his Roadster up to Roosevelt Lake.
Oh, is
so
he?
We can
Okay.
ask him about that, because he's like, yeah, there's a lake around here that has like this hill and a lot of curves and stuff, and I'm really looking forward to it. I said, yeah, I think that's Roosevelt Lake.
Nice. He's staying at the Boulders up north of here, which is really a beautiful area, and it, as the name implies, if you can picture smooth, round boulders like you would see, river washed, except on steroids. These are as big as houses that are actually making up hills and mountains. It's almost as if the Jolly Green Giant used to live here and had some fun, and that was his playground. But
it really is. The Boulders has a couple of championship level golf courses. I actually used to work at the hotel chain that included the Boulders. There were 3 hotels together. This was back when I was in college. So I had occasion to spend some time up there, and oh my gosh, it's so gorgeous.
Very cool. Jess, you might want to look at that screen. We've got an HDMI screen on there.
Yeah, that's for the questions. Pete, real quick,
Yeah.
you want to explain the Roadster?
The image, yeah. All right. So the reason that you're seeing a Roadster that looks like it's coming from a war-torn area is quite unexpected, actually. And as I've mentioned before, when you ask AI to do things, it doesn't always get it right. In this case, I asked for a bright yellow 2008 Tesla Roadster in the sand dunes. And this is what it came up with, one of the 4 versions. I thought it might be appropriate because today we're going to talk about Tesla's buyback program and the fact that if you go to certain service centers, you may occasionally see some Roadsters out and back that look kind of like this. They've been, it's sort of like your last barbecue when you've got a bunch of bones laying somewhere and most of the meat's been picked off. And that's kind of what they're doing with these cars.
Yeah, I mean, this Roadster almost looks like it's sitting on a pyre getting ready to be set on fire or something with all the sticks and wood underneath it.
Right.
Man, I'd be an unhappy Roadster owner if I had all those holes and things from running through the sand dunes.
And of course, proper body work would resolve that. So there is a fix for that. Instagram 4502 says, hi, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome. I know you're not seeing the background yet, but we have the green screen for Instagram. Always feel free to join us on YouTube to get the full effect. And at some point in the near future, I'm sure we will get our Instagram issues taken care of.
And then Highlander says, hi, gang. We have a lady now. Yeah, that's right. Cass has joined our team. And better to say gang than guys from now on. He says, tell Elvis I said hi. Yeah, Elvis and I are going to be doing the Gruber Power Services podcast Friday morning, and we're starting to gather some content for that. So I want to tell you about a Tesla Roadster customer that we've been talking to for some time that has a validation prototype. And you know what? On my screenshot here, it doesn't tell me what number that is. But the VPs, of course, are collectible. There were engineering prototypes, validation prototypes, Founder Series cars, and then eventually the signature cars. The VPs are definitely ranking up there in terms of rarity and collectability. And as conjecture has it, we're not really sure, no one's really sure that the EPs and VPs were even supposed to have been sold.
Right.
So that makes them even more rare because some escaped into the owner pool. Well, anyway, this customer in California has one. He had it converted from a 2.0 or 2.5 front grille back to the original, and he needed that mesh grille that's in the largemouth bass mouth. That's kind of the way that I picture the car. And the version that he got was kind of beat up, and when this conversion took place, so he had been looking for a clean, unmolested version for some time. I recommended to him a few months ago, a couple of ways you can do this. It doesn't look like it's a very hard part to replicate because we didn't have one. You might be able to go to a sheet metal shop, some shop that works in ducting, and those screens are definitely part of that. And they may be able to fabricate you something that looks like the original, or go to your Tesla service centers. They have buyback cars, and although not all the parts that are on have not yet been picked off of the parts cars are in inventory, they may have something. And you know what? He lucked out. I called him earlier this week, and he said, you must have read my mind because just yesterday I was at a Tesla service center, and I got the very screen that I needed. So the point here is Tesla does have parts. You just need to dig a bit and check with your local service centers and ask them perhaps to check with the other service centers, but it's not impossible for you to get hard to find parts. Later on in this podcast, by the way, I had a good conversation with Tesla this morning, and we've got some updates for you, what the commitment to the Tesla project is. First generation, of course, and there's some very good news there.
And Enrique, by the way, has Tesla VIN number 32. I just looked it up.
32. Okay. All right. There you go.
Yeah, Mark, real quick question for you. For our guest who's coming, I can't see. Do you have the new headphone adapter out there, or do I need to grab one real quick?
We have everything set out here.
With the new, okay.
Yep, we have the new adapter, headphone, and microphone. Awesome. So when Mike Maloney comes in, he can just slip on the headphones and start talking.
We're ready for him.
Yep. And as we said earlier, he'll be here in about 45 minutes or so. Should be an interesting visitor.
Now, Pete, we have a picture from some goodies that we got this morning from one of our audience as well.
Yeah, if you can bring that up, Jesse. And for some reason, that picture is called Lamborghini engine or Lambo engine. It's not. It is actually a gift from one of our viewers. But if you can bring up Lambo engine, we'll show the viewers what one of our guests sent us this morning. And thank you very much. We're not 100% certain who it was, so if you would come forward, there was no card. We got a bunch of bagels this morning during our Gruber Motor Company staff meeting. And it looks like a bunch of delectable bagels. Fresh.
Yeah, when the gentleman who delivered them came in, it just said for the social media team, didn't say who it was from. So I think I can speak for all of us. Thank you very much. That was a pretty cool treat this morning.
Mm-hmm. Instagram, Hakim Asua.12. He says, how are you? We're doing well. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
YouTube, Josh is asking, have you had any Model Ys come through with the batteries needing service yet? No, and we're anxiously waiting. It's kind of like Sandy Munro. I want to get a Cybertruck, and I can't wait.
Yeah,
we're pretty excited about getting any of these vehicles. He's got a better chance at seeing this stuff because he actually buys them to do teardowns. We have to wait until something comes in.
Out of warranty
Or in warranty, and there's an activity that the customer wants that won't be covered by the service center.
For reference, Pete, those came out in 2020, so we got about 5 years left on the warranty on those.
All right, so we got a
little time
yet.
Yeah, we've got a little time.
And of course, there's always the possibility that somebody buys one at auction. It's a salvage title. Tesla won't work on it, and then those come to us as well.
Mm-hmm. George on YouTube has joined us this morning. And good morning, George. He says, good morning. Now Mark is happy that I'm here.
We are.
Of course.
Yeah,
of course.
We're always happy when you join us, George. And it wasn't him with the bagels, he's admitting. So there's someone else that was the beneficiary, or we're the beneficiaries. And we've got a benefactor out there. So another customer issue that I found over the last week or so, got a customer in Cincinnati area. Turns out there are 2 Tesla service centers there, one up in Dayton and one in Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we're doing, of course, is always looking for information about which service centers are able to do battery swaps, which ones are still working on Roadsters. If you go to our Facebook site, Tesla Roadster Owners Group, you'll see a list of service center that is evolving based on feedback from owners that are going to their various respective service centers in their areas and qualifying them. Do you still work on Roadsters? If so, do you do batteries as well? And it's a growing list. It's becoming more accurate. And I'll have more information from you how Tesla feels about this list here. Not too far away here, but let me cover this one first. So he got an R80 pack. And it was done at the Dayton Service Center, which does both service work and R80 swaps. Cincinnati does only service work. So that's going to be an important distinction in our list of growing service centers and their capabilities. So within the last week, we've changed that list to where there's a color version if they do batteries and black and white version if they just do service work. The reason that might be important to you as a Tesla Roadster owner is rather than drive to the service center you're used to, which is 15 miles away, it happened to one customer in the southeast where they were told, we don't work on Roadsters anymore. You're going to have to go 200 miles north. So you save yourself a trip and you can, contact the service center that is going to be able to work on your car before you even take it there. So, in this particular case, the customer got his R80 pack and then realized, of course, that now I've extended the life of my Roadster another 15, 20 years. I now want to focus on the electronics, and I want to have a full power electronics rebuild and overhaul.
Mm-hmm.
And so the car is coming here currently, and we're going to complete or synchronize the electronics with the extended life in that battery.
One of the things that we've been able to do, because the Tempe, Arizona service center, which is about 25 miles from our shop, also does the battery exchanges. People are able to send their cars here to us, and then we work on the PEM, and while the car is waiting for its battery swap, once the car is ready for its battery swap, it's a quick trip down on the usually on the tow truck. But if it's already a drivable car, it's a quick drive down to the Tempe Service Center. The battery gets swapped, and that way everybody, the owner gets the advantage of time. Mm-hmm. They get everything done at once, and they don't have to sit there and wait for 4 or 5 or 6 months for the battery and then have it come to us and get into our queue at the back of the line as well.
Sure. What you're describing right now is actually what a Florida customer is doing. He's got a brick Roadster. It's been bricked for some time. Mm-hmm. And he realizes he's going to have to send it to a service center anyway. So rather than do that, he's sending it to us. We then put it in queue. We work closely with the Tempe Service Center. Mm-hmm. We ship the battery, or we ship the car to them for the battery swap, comes back here, gets the upgrade, then goes back to the customer. It's been completely upgraded.
Yeah, the customers that have gone through that, I think, have been really excited. That's the feedback I've been getting from Victor secondhand. Mm-hmm. And I'm certain that concentrating the battery swaps down in Tempe has given the people at Tempe the confidence and the experience to be able to do these battery swaps right the first time.
Absolutely. Looks like we've got a bunch of comments coming in now. Highlander, it was me. Should have had strawberry as well. Highlander, thank you very much for those bagels. They've been a huge hit. In fact, even Mark came over.
Yeah. That's right. Richard told me about it, and yes, one of those cream cheese bins was little tubs was a strawberry cream cheese as well,
and it was very good.
And it was consistent with the overall theme, which is kindness is still free.
That's right.
George is saying like button already hit. Thank you. He's also saying, what is the updated date when the Barn Find Roadsters are coming? Yep, everybody's excited about those.
Yes.
All right, that actually is the next action item here. Talked to the seller yesterday. All 3 Roadsters have successfully cleared customs. They went through with flying colors. There wasn't anything major, and they are at this point cleared for transport to Phoenix.
Oh, that's fantastic.
They will be placed on transport or flatbeds either today or tomorrow. They could be here as soon as Friday this week, the end of this week, but more than likely Monday. And again, 20-foot sea containers. The challenge on our end now is some logistics issues. These things weigh 8,000 pounds. We've got about 3,000 pounds of car inside a 5,000-pound sea container, so about 4 tons. And we've got a 45-ton crane standing by that is going to be dispatched as soon as these trucks are on their way. And what we're trying to do is coincide that, because when you in this world, it's all about charges for people waiting. So when the truck gets here, we've got 1 hour free, and then it's $400 and then $185 per hour as they wait for us to unload them. So we're going to be pretty focused on trying to get them unloaded.
And we have confirmed now that it's going to be the tractor trailers. Typical.
Yeah, that's what the plan is, and I'm not sure that they've been selected yet, but it's going to get loaded today or tomorrow, so we'll find out in short order.
I realize that there may be an option of some sort of a tilt bed or something like that.
No, we looked into that. They said it's not an option.
Okay, and I was going to say, even if that is an option, I think what we do is you just go with the crane. Yeah. You don't mess with it. Don't fuss with it. I realize the crane operator is probably going to bring the crane by and charge $250 an hour, whether he's working or not.
Yeah, very much so. And there's another whole, you always get into these deviations from what the plan was. And this is a new twist. We are about a half a mile from a small regional airport here, Deer Valley Air Park.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Well, the city of Phoenix has begun to crack down on cranes, and you have to have a permit,
Oh,
so fortunately, our crane company happened to have had a spare permit, because normally this takes a few days, which could have delayed things, right?
Yes.
And my God, can you imagine those things are showing up and we're accruing costs per hour and waiting 2 or 3 days for the city of Phoenix to come through with a permit so that we can get the crane. But so anyway, that seems to be solved as well, and it's going to be quite an event. We're looking forward to it.
That's going to be a lot of fun.
Just hit the like button, okay, Highlander. It's the little white button. Thanks for the reminder, and kindness is always free. Thank you.
Thank you.
George is saying, I'm not too familiar with Ice Lotus. What are they made of? Aluminum or steel body frame? Are they unibodies, etc.? The Lotus cars. The Lotus Elise was an aluminum frame, which is what the Roadster turned into as well. And I would say that based on Lotus's claim to fame by being light sports cars, it's probably aluminum.
I'm gonna bet that it is. I'm not sure right off the top of my head though.
Ed Prelitz is joining us with YouTube. Do Tesla Roadsters have over-the-air updates? No, unfortunately, that concept was not quite evolved enough yet when the Roadster came out. Although there was a 2G link for a while until the 2G system went dead and the service centers could actually get into your Roadster. And that has now been replaced with the OVMS system for the Roadster, which I believe goes up to 5G now.
Yeah, I believe so. I think the Model S was the pioneer of over-the-air updates. And it was actually making the news back in 2014, 2015 when the first of the over-the-air updates came out, because it was revolutionary to people. The concept that my car that could go 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds now can go 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds, and all they did was change some software. And that was that. I still remember seeing the news stories about the new features that were coming into the car, and the fact that you didn't have to take it to your service center or to your, to auto repair shop to get any of these new features. They were just there.
And it took a huge bite out of the expensive recalls. Remember the old days of recalls? Every car had to go to the dealership and service center. The dealership would charge a manufacturer, and then you had downtime and parts and loaners being dispatched. A lot of these updates now or these recalls can be handled with an OTA update.
That's right. So Tesla was the first one to do it. They had the monopoly on over-the-air updates for probably 3 or 4 years, I think, before other cars started to come out with the concept, with that idea as something that would be feasible and doable. A lot of people were just, we're going to watch and see. We don't think this is going to work. And of course, it did. And now everybody is following Tesla's lead.
So we've got an item here, the Roadster VIN 507, the one that went around the world in 2012, that is starting to go around the world again, that was in our shop for a while, got a replacement battery pack from Tesla Tempe, and then came to us for the electronics rebuilds. It apparently got stalled in Seattle, and I think you have some data on that.
Yeah, we have a little bit of an update on that. If you guys recall last week, we shared an Instagram post from the ADE Days site where it said our official Roadster is still stuck in Seattle. If you have any ideas on how to get help in getting us transported from Seattle onto a container ship so that we can get overseas, that would be great. Well, here at Grouper Motors, we actually helped a lot with the process of getting the Roadster, the World Traveler, off of the Aventura and into Miami, and then from Miami to us. So we contacted the very same customs handler who helped us to get the car into the States. They're now helping Raphael to get his car out of the States. They're in the process of finalizing this, the securing of transport. They're getting working with Raphael to get the appropriate paperwork done, but they're helping to handhold him and lead him through that process.
And wasn't this the same team that was involved back in 2012, so he knew them?
It wasn't so much 2012 that he knew them. It was here when the Roadster was coming to us.
Oh, from Hamburg to
Miami.
Okay.
He was unfamiliar with the customs process, and so we had the ship actually through the Cuba and the bad winds and everything, and just about to come to Miami. And we asked him the question, okay, customs is going to be ready to get your car in a couple days. Do you have the paperwork? He's like, what's that? And so we got in touch, found somebody down in Miami. They helped us learn how to deal with customs and have helped us since. And they were a huge help to us in getting that car off of the Aventura through customs, through the red tape. I think they actually pulled some strings because the customs agents were not very happy that on a Tuesday afternoon, some automobile shows up and they had no idea it was coming. They don't like surprises.
Yes, and I remember the long forms that were sent that needed us to weigh in on how dangerous this car is, and this battery, and all the ramifications.
All of that stuff. It took us about a week and a half that time to get through customs, but we got through it. We got the car, everything repaired. Now the same people are helping him to get his car out of Seattle and over, I believe it's over to either the Hong Kong area or southeastern China.
Okay, so 507 is going to continue its travels around the world. Very famous car. I don't know if I have a picture of it here, Jesse. If we do, we could throw that up for the audience here briefly. Yeah, it does not look like I do. Okay. It looks like YouTube. George is saying normally the containers get slid off a long flatbed-like truck. I have 4 containers at the shop. We asked about that, and I'm not sure what the issue was. We use that type of transport all the time with, the sexy cars and the Roadsters. When they arrive here, oftentimes there's a tilt bed, and they're able to unload that way. But for some reason, with these 20-foot sea containers, the broker that the seller was using said that's not available to us.
I'm wondering in this case if it's that it's coming right off of the shipping yard where they have those large overhead cranes that simply drop that container onto the back of a semi-tractor, and the trailer portion of that then is it basically clamps onto that sea container. And in those cases, the only way to get them off is to lift them off just like they were lifted on.
Yeah. Question George asks also, is there a tow mode in Roadsters like the Model S? Yes, there is. Mm-hmm. The difficulty with the Roadster is if the car if it gets bricked and any extended period of time, then it's no longer able to wake up the 12 volts basically and go into the tow mode function. We're able to do it here with a laptop and some CAN signals, but you can't do that, out at a customer site.
Right. Joy's cleaning lady is with us here today. And so good morning.
Welcome.
And glad to have you here. He asks, will any Tesla service provider offer a retrofit for the NACS/DC charging? And that, of course, is the what used to be called the Tesla Trident charger. Or are we stuck with the HPWCs? Don't know what that one stands for.
I don't either. Anyone wants to weigh in on that? That one we can answer.
But we do have, I know that we have CAN Junior and CAN Senior adapters for the Roadsters. Mm-hmm. And you'll have to tell me which one is which because I don't know personally.
Simple way to remember it is the Junior is J1772.
Okay,
there's a J in there.
There we go.
Yeah.
So the CAN Junior adapter will allow you to plug your Roadster into the J1772 adapter, and the CAN Senior then would be able to plug into the Tesla Trident adapter.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Mark.
Yes.
The HPWC stands for High Power Wall Connector. Tesla.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Aaron. So we do have the ability to get those and sell those to customers.
Mm-hmm. All right. It looks like I want to throw a picture up here. This is our German software guru and also mechanical engineer, Marco Nolte. The picture is called ESS Pack-2, Jesse. And what Marco is working on in Germany, and he has a full-time job, so this is part-time, but he has been working on a Tesla Roadster replacement battery that uses a completely different cell type architecture. In fact, this is a custom steel frame that he welded that replicates what's in a Tesla Roadster. These are Porsche Taycan battery packs. And as we had mentioned in some earlier podcasts, it looks like the mechanical portion is going to be much simpler to resolve than the final integration of firmware, hardware, and so that this pack looks and feels like an original pack to the firmware and to the electronics. Mm-hmm. And the reason that's important is all the electronics in a Roadster are basically obsolete at this point. That's one of the reasons we're in business. We actually do component level troubleshooting right down to the component, and that's how we're able to repair to keep these things alive. So to recreate those electronics gets pretty costly, and for only 2,000 customers or so, no one has yet found the ROI to do that.
Right.
But anyway, there's another picture, Jesse. It's called ESS Pack-1, and now you can see the Roadster battery pack, and you can see that physically it looks similar or the same. But again, the challenge is going to be in the software and in matching the electronics and making it happy with this new design battery pack. What you're looking at here is a 1,000-pound Tesla Roadster battery pack. They called it an ESS, Energy Storage System. It has 11 sheets in it, and you can count those there. There's 621 18650 cells per sheet and 9 bricks in each sheet that are connected in parallel. And that's fundamentally what the firmware and all of the safety systems in the Roadster are looking for. So Marco's challenge is going to be to take that battery pack, which may even have more power than the original, and somehow fool the Roadster firmware and electronics into believing that it has one of these traditional battery packs with those brick counts and, of course, cell voltages and all the rest. And we're hoping that he comes through with something, because that would be the first time that anybody in the EV space has actually successfully built a replacement Tesla Roadster battery pack.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited to see what might be happening with that. If I remember right, didn't Marco tell us that these battery modules that he's using for replacements are Porsche Taycan battery modules? And he's talking about doing reverse engineering from a software level like we do on a hardware level. Huge respect to him for that. I've had to do some reverse engineering on a software level in my past, and that is not an easy task.
The other thing that was pretty exciting about his latest email to us was he says that the Model S DC to DC converter, and again, this is a part that takes the main battery voltage, 400 volts, in the U.S., and converts that down to 12.7 volts to run all of your low voltage devices in the car, combined with a 12-volt battery to give you some ride through, basically. And what the DC to DC converter does is it keeps that battery charged so that your headlights work and your door locks and your MCU and your audio equipment and system, your interior lights, door locks, window regulators, all of that. The problem with the Tesla Roadster APS unit, as they call it, auxiliary power source or DC to DC converter, is it has been obsolete since 2008. A couple companies made it, Martech and Delta, the Delta version being a more robust version, but no one's going to make that anymore.
Right.
You know, Tesla a couple years ago had like 60 of them left in stock, and now with all of these packs that they're recreating or that they're rebuilding, not all of those DC to DC converters will function, so I'm sure they're using those up at this point. What Marco's been able to do, though, I know it's a long story here, he's been able to start to convert a Tesla Model S DC to DC converter to work in the Tesla Roadster. And that would be a major gain, because you can't buy the Tesla Roadster DC to DC converter. And like most electronics, it's not going to last forever. It's a power part, just like the power electronics module is.
The exciting thing to me on that particular piece is that even if Marco fails on the battery effort, and we're hoping that he doesn't, by the way, we hope that it's all successful, the fact that he has been successful in this part might end up being a significant move forward for the Tesla Roadster's longevity, regardless of what happens to the battery pack.
Right. And, you know, the reason this is so important, you can go out on eBay, for example, try to find a Tesla Roadster DC to DC converter. They don't exist. But if you look for a Model S DC to DC converter, they're plentiful.
Yeah.
There are hundreds of thousands of Model S's out there that are going, to auctions, that are collision damaged, that are being parted out. And this part is readily available and probably will be for a long period of time.
Yeah, considering that the Model S is even today still being manufactured, that means that the manufacturers of these DC to DC converters, as long as they don't have exclusivity agreements with Tesla, you may be able to even get them new right from a manufacturer.
Yeah, that'd be great. His final comment to us is, he says, "We'll let you know once I have something worth showing again." So our hats off to you, Marco. We're excited and anxiously waiting for you to innovate and create some product for the Roadster.
Yes, best of luck to you decompiling and understanding that 90% plus of the Roadster code that you're going to have to do. At least knowing that it's Linux and that it's Perl, you're not talking about something that's been compiled down into machine code in all likelihood.
It looks like YouTube. Leto Idaho's back with us, and we had a discussion last week, I believe it was, where we had mentioned that WD-40 may be conductive to a degree, and he said WD-40 is an insulator and does not conduct electricity. Of course, there's a dielectric factor. You know, at what voltage do you get breakdown?
Right.
And But yeah, I guess in general, it is an insulator.
Yeah, Lito, thank you for that clarification from last week in our discussion. And that definitely is true. It displaces water. George on YouTube was also talking about this, saying that WD-40 stands for water displacement 40th formula. And he says, just think if they figured out the WD formula sooner, then maybe you would have had WD-38 out on the market.
Or 39.
Or 39.
Yeah. Good point. I did not know that. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, George. Ed Prelate says, since the Roadster is GNU/Linux, during your services performed on the cars, do you ever add new directories/files to add additional capabilities or data logs to these vehicles?
We don't add those currently, and that has to deal with the level of knowledge that we have on the Roadsters ourselves. I'm going to use kind of an analog, or a comparison here. Somebody who knows how to read a Spanish book does not necessarily equate to know somebody who knows how to speak Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who knows how to read Perl script or use software does not necessarily equate to somebody who knows how to write Perl script or save software. And as of right now, we just don't have the skill set in our engineering group to be able to write and update the Perl script stuff. Trust me, if we did, I'm sure that Marco and we would be talking to each other a lot more right now.
Mm-hmm. Just to get a picture I want to throw up there. It's called Service Centers-TROG. That's the Roadster Owners Group is what that stands for. And there have been some modifications over the last week. And again, thank you to all of the community for updating us where they've had success taking their Roadsters and what kind of service they've been able to get from them. Mm-hmm. The newest version of this is the color green version, where we show the service centers that are known to have been able to do 3.0 battery swaps. And this list is evolving. It may, it will continue to get corrected and updated. And again, we're looking for the community to feed information into this list. It is available out there on the Facebook site, Tesla Roadster Owners Group. And if we get enough interest, we may make this available on our website as well. But it's an important list, and in my conversation with Tesla this morning, they said that this list is pretty dynamic at this point, and it will continue to change. And then they said something that really was music to my ears, because we continue to add more service centers, and we continue to add more Roadster capability. Then they went into, we are training technicians to work on Roadsters. So that's an ongoing effort as well. There's always this latent fear that the Tesla Roadster will eventually get abandoned by Tesla, and that the owners are going to be SOL because they're no longer going to have repair options or parts. And again, this conversation this morning, just the opposite is true. In fact, let me jump to that, and I'll read you some of the other items that we spoke about that should be important to the Tesla Roadster owners. All right, so Tesla is actually saving some of these buyback Roadsters, and there's one currently in their showroom in Dallas and one in Baltimore, and another Roadster in the Northeast, which is drivable and goes to car shows occasionally. So I went a step further. I said, hey, could you guys get a hold of Elon and tell him that we've got 3 Chinese Roadsters with close to 0 miles on them that would look really stunning in some of his Gigafactory front lobbies. The Roadsters that they currently have in showrooms are the service centers, which are small. Mm-hmm. But wouldn't it be great, and I've said this a million times already, most likely, to have their first generation car, brand new, untitled, unused, in each of their showrooms at these large gigafactories as on display for anyone that comes to visit. But again, the good news is Tesla takes the Roadster very seriously. Regarding the customers that are at the service centers, all right, the buyback Roadsters, these are being taken apart for parts. And there is what they called a PDC. And I said, come on, you guys have a lot of acronyms. What does that stand for? He says, of course, Parts Distribution Center, which catalogs and receives Roadster parts. Now, as some of you have noticed that are going to the service centers, and you may see some Roadsters out and back, not everything is in this PDC yet.
Right.
But the goal is to enter it into inventory and then, of course, make it available to all the other service centers. So we spoke about that for a bit. They are also trying to maintain inventory levels, and they admitted that they still have NOS parts, new out-of-stock parts for Tesla Roadster. So the prevailing conventional wisdom is that everything got thrown away that was Roadster-related is not true. They must have had a whole bunch, because the stuff that did get thrown away certainly doesn't represent everything that got thrown away. So they do have some NOS parts, and of course, they are continuing to expand the supply chain. And we're very well aware of that, because they come to us oftentimes for parts, to recreate parts, or to reactivate some of the old vendors.
Right. So I took this message that you, in conversation that you had with Tesla, to me, it's hugely encouraging. Again, it's Tesla coming out and saying, we're training more people, we're opening up more sites. It's dynamic enough that we don't want to give you a list, because it changes regularly enough and typically expands regularly enough that we don't want people to pigeonhole us in.
Right.
Plus, we're getting other parts. I know in a few months ago we had some pictures of some Roadsters sitting behind a Tesla shop, sitting in the weather and top off and all rain soaked, and that type of thing. While it still might be occurring a little bit, it's going to be getting less over time, because they're working hard to get these Roadsters torn down and preserved.
Very much so. The and the training for the Roadster techs, they also mentioned that it's difficult to create a list, because oftentimes they will move tools around and move techs around based on a Roadster need at a service center.
Sure, that makes sense.
Another good news item, it looks like the ESS battery packs, the replacement packs, the 3.0 packs, the wait list right now, or the wait time, is about 6 months. And one of the reasons for that, and this is what one of our customers confirmed who went to the Cincinnati Service Center, he was saying they told him that they now have these packs pre-assembled. And as the cores are received, they get shipped out immediately. And again, the wait list is usually about 6 months from the date that you have requested your pack to the time that something gets inserted in your car. The way to get yourself on the ESS waiting list has also changed a bit. For a while, we were collecting that for Tesla, and we were updating them with a list every month or two. And the current recommendation is to work with your local service center if you need a battery pack, and do not send it to Roadster Service NA. That is a fallback if you're not getting through to the service centers. And the service centers are more than capable of taking your order for your ESS pack. And if it's a car that has come here or that is going to come here, then we get involved, and we will do that order processing with you with the Tempe Service Center.
That's correct.
All right. Let's see if there's anything else here.
We've got a couple of comments that have come in the meantime. On Highlander, he says, Gruber Power should be proud for helping me spread the message. We need it now more than ever. And of course, that message is that kindness is always free. Then Pola Tacker 0000 says, greetings from Turkey. I follow the program closely, and a bunch of thumbs up. So
6 of them. Well, thank you. Yeah,
thanks
for joining us. And then George is doing the fashion analysis.
Yes.
And he's saying, I see Mark went out of his way today to not match his shirt with the background shot. He even put on a down-dress shirt today, not his normal collared button-down. Well, I got to tell you, George, it's possible that we're the ones that created that, because we had another background image until minutes before the podcast. And then at the last minute decided, let's go with this one since we're going to be talking about the buyback Roadsters sitting out behind service centers that often look like they've been picked clean.
That's right. And you know, and I could have worn my tan button-down shirt and not the dark red polo, but you know, I'm trying.
All right, I got a picture to throw up. Verona Museum, guys. And when I first saw this, I thought, oh my God, it's a reincarnation. And then I realized it looks like Madame Tussauds Wax Museum. This is in a museum in Verona, Italy. And the reason I'm telling you all this, yeah, here we go. We have a likeness of Steve Jobs there. And let me read you this. This is something that came to us through Facebook a few weeks ago. He says, hello, Peter. I own a 2.5 white Roadster, VIN 728. Should I add it to the list that you prepared and you're updating? And he's asking about our census program. And by the way, those of you that aren't aware of our census program on our website, we started this over 2 years ago because everyone asks how many Roadsters are left. Even Tesla was asking that, you know. And, of course, the hidden agenda there might be, should we continue to support this car if there aren't that many left? You know, we're buying them back and they're getting collision damaged, you know, all of that. Well, we decided to start the census program allowing owners to register their cars. And what we came up with was about 2,000 still left in existence. And we believe that Tesla was pretty impressed with that. And that's why some of this continued support and accelerated support is beginning to manifest from Tesla. So he's asking, should I put the my Roadster into the census? And of course, I told him absolutely. He says, I live in Italy, in Villafranca di Verona, near Garda Lake, near Venice. And those of you that have ever been to northern Italy, Garda Lake is one of the most beautiful areas of the Alps, northern Italy. In fact, George Clooney, I think, has a villa there.
Wouldn't be surprised. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. And but anyway, he says, in Villafranca di Verona, we have also our museum that was realized by my father, Luciano, and opened in 2000, November. Those of you interested in his museum, and they have cars there, by the way, and this is where we're going with this. They want an EV section. It's called museonicolis.com. So www.museonicolis.com. And it's a great website, by the way. I went to it. Unfortunately, it says my father passed in 2012, but the museum continued with me and my sister Sylvia. Their intention is to create or to expand the museum. They have a total exhibition area of 6,000 square meters, and it is dedicated to Tesla and the history of electric cars. They still also own a Baker, which is an EV from 1919 that's still running. And if we want to bring that up, guys, Mark was kind enough to put a Baker in there, and we'll see what that looked like. It kind of looks like a Model T to me, doesn't it?
A little bit. And I found this is likely is Jay Leno's Baker electric car. And they and I had trouble finding a 1919 Baker, and it wasn't until I actually went into some history of Baker Motor Company and stuff and found out why I was having so much trouble finding a 1919 Baker. Baker stopped making their cars in 1914.
1914, okay. And that would be around the time that ICE began to take over.
Yeah, and that's about the time that the Model T came out. So I don't think they have a 1919, but they might have a 1909, because Baker in 1909 was the largest automaker in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so this Baker, which this one is actually a 1912 Baker, and it had a 50-mile range, maximum top speed of just over 20 miles an hour. This is one of their, this is their midline model. The low-end model looked a little bit more like a wagon. It had an open, just an open area, not an enclosed cab, and would sell for about $2,100. This would sell for about $2,700. The high-end model could seat 5, and this one could only seat 2. And the high-end model was $3,200. starting price.
Mm-hmm.
And this is back in 1909, so that's a very expensive car at that time.
Any range or top speed?
Yeah, again, the range was about 50 miles on it.
50, okay.
And top speed was just over 20 miles an hour.
Okay. So you couldn't speed with it.
You could, well, according to us, because if you remember, speed limits back then were typically 10 to 14 miles an hour. So you could. And I even saw a picture, although I didn't add it here, a young girl with an electric cord coming into the back of the car and plugging it into the car.
I saw that. Yeah, that was a timeless picture.
Yes.
So Thomas Nicholas and his sister Sylvia are looking for currently another Roadster, or Roadsters plural, a Model S, and any recent models, if possible, that they can put into this museum by Gardasee, as we say in Germany, or Garda Lake near Verona.
I'm wondering if we need to contact him about VIN 3, the Roadster and Model S twins.
You know, I sent him that information. Yes.
Good.
Including our VIN 69 Model S, which is killing me as a loaner.
Oh, yeah.
Highly collectible car. So, yeah, for those of you interested, museonicolis.com, museonicolis.com, and you can see this cool museum in a beautiful part of Italy.
And they've got a wonderful gallery of about 160 or so pictures as well of many of the cars that they have.
Mm-hmm.
So it's worth a visit.
Highlander saying, Mark's wearing a nice business casual shirt. My lady friend just punched me in the arm. Actually, Mark's going to be shooting a video this afternoon.
That's right. And it's we were hoping to do it yesterday. And sometimes, you know how the day goes. You get to your office and you have the line of people that have urgent issues. By the time they're done talking to you, it's 4 o'clock already. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is time. It was shooting time.
Comes quickly.
It comes quickly.
It looks like one of the EV godfathers here in Arizona just joined us from Facebook, Jiminy Stack. And he's saying Cadillac invented the battery electric starter in 1912. Mr. Kettering invented it, and electrics and steam then were cut back. And I believe I've also mentioned that Bendix took that design and created the Bendix automatic starter, which made it easy now to get in your car and just simply drive, just like the electric cars. What we're talking about here is the ICE engines or the ICE vehicles had to have be cranked, and they felt that the ladies weren't strong enough to do that. All right, we've got another item here. If you guys could throw this one up. This one is the, if I can find it here. Yeah, no, bleed test, that's not it either. Well, yeah, there it is, headlights. Victor, our service manager at Gruber Motor Company, wanted me to make sure that you guys understand that when we rebuild and repair headlights, and we do a number of things, by the way, we open them up, we take care of the flaking and the peeling, which is very common on the Tesla Roadsters. We redo the seals, but in that middle picture to the left, right above my head to my... well, I can't point to it. It's always opposite, so I'm confused. We actually use a stainless steel clamp, and we change the rubber cups. And then to the right, you can see that we actually seal up the lens, which is important because that's the biggest problem with these. You get interior contamination, and you get exterior contamination with that flaking and that peeling. For those of you interested in more capabilities regarding how we make these headlights look brand new, if you go to our website and go to services, you'll find that there's a section there called headlight restoration. And it's become a very popular part of our Tesla Roadster refurbishing and one of the popular items that people upgrade when their Roadsters come here. George says, before starters were invented, Mr. Pete used to have to hand crank his car every morning to get to work. LOL. They're making fun of my age again, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Thank you, George. All right. Another picture. Let's pick up granddaughter. And before Mike gets here, because I think he's going to be here any minute now. And what I have here is one of my granddaughters, and I have lots, by the way. This is Emily, and she was about a year old at that point, I think. And that was when I was still in the ice world. I had my Dodge ACR Viper, and what we're replicating here is she's helping me do an oil change. And you can see there's a little wrench in her hand. There's, of course, some grease marks. And I got to tell you, we had to do this quickly, my son Peter and I, because once Mom, if she had found out that we were doing this, she would have immediately rescued that baby and brought it back in the house.
Oh, of course.
But we had her out in the garage for a while, and that has become a timeless picture.
I mean, that's a pretty classic picture. I saw that in pre-show looking at it and like, wow, you got wrenches in each hand. She's just laying there chill. You even managed to get a little bit of grease on her cheek and on her forehead. Yeah. And if Mom had known about that, I'm sure Mom would have stopped it immediately.
And, one of her favorite things to do was when she would come to visit us, mostly every Sunday, we would go out in the garage, and I would open the toolbox, and she loved the sound of the clinking with the wrenches as she would pick them up and drop them. Yeah. So I figured she might be a gearhead one of these days. She's currently 11 years old, and at this point, it's more about dealing with a guy that she has a crush on in her class.
Oh, okay.
She's in 7th grade, and so we talk about that often, and it's the normal stuff. He ignores me, then he doesn't, and what should I do, and why does he do that, and, so.
Sure, yeah. The first problem is that he ignored her today, and then the second problem tomorrow is that he didn't ignore her.
Right, yeah, you got that right. All right, YouTube Highlander, she punched me in the arm again. She said, girlfriend. Oh, okay.
There you go.
All right.
It's normal in my family, he continues.
Yeah. All right. So moving right along here. If we can bring up, Jesse, the Service Center TROG document. And what I wanted to show you guys was, hang on a second. I think I got a better one. No, it's BIL-1, BIL-1. And for those of you curious, what does a 3.0 battery replacement cost, and what is the breakdown? What we did was one of our customers in Texas sent us his bill, and what I wanted to show you was the charges, what they're for, and what the totals are. Now, we've been tossing around the notion that this is a $30,000 pack replacement. It's actually not. The final version came out to like $35 after taxes. In Texas, there was like $2,500 tax.
Yeah, that $35,000 is a little bit more than what we've been saying in the past.
Right. Now, what they also have begun to do, which was on and off, it looked like, if you look at the bottom of this bill, it says PCBA tested and configured. This is the PEC board. This is the brains of the power electronics module. And what they have to do here is actually replace some of the components on this board, like bias resistors, because the charging characteristics on this replacement battery, or these 18650 cells, are different than the old cells, which are 2.2 amp hour. These are 3.2 amp hour.
Right.
Which is where you get your 80 kW from and the additional range, because the original battery was 53 kW. So they throw in an $1,800 board on top of the $29,000 for the battery pack. Yeah, there it is, $29,000. And if we can go to the next one, Jesse, BIL-2 most likely. There we can see the $29,000 charge for the 3.0 battery pack. And I'm going to bring that up here in a second.
We'd been talking about the prices of these batteries and had always been assuming that just that $29,000 battery plus a little bit of labor is what it would take to have the $30,000 battery, correct?
Correct, yes. And it turns out that that is not quite the case. All right, so here we go. You can see the $29,000 battery. And then in the next page, Jesse, which is going to be BIL-3, you can see the breakdown and the final tally. And again, there is tax that's going to be added to this, and the PEC board, and they also charged labor on this. So the final number came out to just above $35,000 for the battery pack replacement. Is there a section above this, Jesse, or is that it?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's it. So the total parts, which included the battery and the PEC board, came to about $30,900 or so. It says actually $30,935.75. There was just under $1,600 in labor with that as well, leaving a subtotal of about $32,500. Now in Texas, apparently they have fairly high sales tax because it was $2,552 sales tax. And that's what came up to this $35,000 figure.
Yeah. All right. Another item that I have for you is there was a customer on Facebook that just got his Roadster back from a PPF installation, and prior to new paint and some removal. Remember, PPF does not last forever. We had the worst case Roadster actually that we had was one that had gone cloudy on us from Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And for most of the car, we were able to remove the old PPF without any damage. But in the front, it turns out that the PPF adhesive had crystallized and bonded with the clear coat. And at that point, there's nothing you can do other than remove it and then repaint. So the lesson there is PPF is good for about 5 to 8 years. Make sure that you remove it within that time frame, because if you wait until later, you may end up with a repaint project with your Roadster.
And that's going to be especially true if you're in the hotter southern climates, where that PPF will dry out due to the higher intensity ultraviolet radiation from the sun.
And there was something that was also mentioned to us by some PPF experts that the red colors tend to intensify the decline of PPF for whatever reason, whether UV reacts differently with it or if there's a chemical process there. If any of you know what that's about, we'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I remember Victor telling us that and not really understanding why. We'd love to hear more.
But yeah, one of the things that we do now in the service center, if a car comes in with PPF, we immediately ask the client, how long's it been on there? And unless you're attached to it, like I am with number 5, because number 5 actually has watermarks in it that have a Tesla shield in it. And from a collectability standpoint, that PPF is shot. It's not as bright as it used to be, but we're leaving it on number 5 because of the collectability aspect.
Sure, that one you want to keep as original as possible, and I could see that PPF and repaint would definitely harm the value of that vehicle.
Mm-hmm. So a customer in California was complaining about lurching with his Tesla Roadster. And if you hit a bump just right, then your regen turns off and the ABS kicks in or kicks out, and
yes,
it will fool you into thinking that you actually are accelerating. And what it is with the regen turning off, it's a subjective experience that you're used to it, having a certain amount of drag. When that goes away, then it feels like somebody is stepping on your accelerator when that's not the case.
Sure.
What you've done is you've lost the drag, you've lost the regen. Well, in his case, it seemed to be intermittently doing this, even if he wasn't hitting small bumps. And as it turns out, he took it to a Tesla service center in California, and it was the Long Beach Service Center, by the way. So credit to them. There were a lot of armchair mechanics that chimed in and said, "Well, it could be a wheel bearing, it could be a this, it could be a that." It turns out that it was simply the sensor was bad, and the service center repaired it, and he is back operational.
So that sensor then, that was the sensor that was telling the car whether or not to go into regen mode?
Well, it was the ABS sensor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now something else I wanted to show you. If we can bring up Tesla, let's see if I can find it here, Jesse. All right. It is the bleed test rivets. We'll bring that one up first. In your Tesla Roadster, you have sheets in the ESS pack, and each of those sheets have bricks, and those bricks are a combination of bonding plates, and they're sense wires that come off of those bonding plates, and the bonding plates, by the way, connect 69 cells in parallel. The wires from those were originally attached with rivets, pop rivets. And it was a poor choice because you can't control the clamping force with pop rivets. With hardware, you can torque it to a certain setting.
Sure.
With pop rivets, you never know when that center pin is going to pop, whether it was really tight or if it was loose. So what they found as time went on, the connection to the B&B board, which is the microprocessor, and there's one on every single sheet, was becoming compromised, and it was sensing an impedance problem, which is a safety issue. Mm-hmm. And if it got bad enough, it wouldn't just throw errors, it would actually stop charging or shut down the car. So Tesla recognized this problem fairly early on, and they retrofitted a number of these sheets, but they didn't get to all of them because a lot of cars were already out in the field. So what we found is over the years that it doesn't happen right away once the cars were released. With age, vibration, humidity, you get metal fatigue because you've got aluminum. These become looser and looser, and when they do, then you have a problem. So what we did was, like Tesla, we took the rivets out. What Tesla did was they used an ultrasonic welder to weld that wire onto the bonding plate. What we use is simple PC hardware, and we torque it to a certain setting, which then resolves the problem. Well, as it turns out, and there's another image here we want to pop up, and you can see in that image that's up there, to the right is the hardware, in the middle is the pop rivet, and to the far left is a pop rivet that is come loose.
It's the hardware itself, and it's simply it's simply like the kind of screw that you would put a PC motherboard into a PC case with.
Precisely. In the next image, bleed test. And there we're going to show you, even after this retrofit had been done, there is another connector that is involved in potentially causing bleed test errors. And what we're looking at here is the socket that is on the battery management board, or the B&B board, and the plug that it goes into down below there. Now, the problem here is that connector combination is not a mil spec, and it's not even an automotive spec connector. The backstory that we got, and this is kind of intriguing, from one of the old timers at Tesla, they were looking for a connector that had this many pins that they could fit onto this B&B board that would fit on the sheet. And they ended up using a clothes dryer connector. And of course, your clothes dryer, you're not going to plug and unplug this endlessly. You don't do it that often in a battery or in a Tesla Roadster battery, but when you do maintenance and you pull those cards, you're going to compromise the connector. And what happens is the female portion of it, and it's shown on that picture in the lower left-hand corner, it's called a splayed pin. And if you look very carefully there, you can see that the two halves of the socket are actually spread apart a bit further than the other sockets that you'll see on that connector. And when that happens, you end up with the same problem that you have when you have a loose rivet, because you get an impedance problem, which is exactly what the firmware is looking for in this battery sheet for safety reasons.
Sure.
So the fix for this is either changing the connector or pushing those pins back together on that socket. And anyway, this is one of the design issues with a Tesla Roadster that didn't manifest itself day one. And sometimes these types of problems occur after the cars are in use. And, I've gone through temperature variation, cycling, metal fatigue, moisture, humidity, vibration, all of those things. And it just proves that you can't quite catch everything. Now, of course, if they had used a more robust connector system, this probably would not have been a problem.
Very possible it wouldn't have been a problem. I mean, if you take a look, you've got, with those connectors, imagine yourself as an engineer in 2008. You're taking a look, you're trying to find the connector that will work. You know that you're probably going to plug in this card and it's going to sit there.
Right.
At the time, you're not thinking forward 5 or 8 or 12 or 15 years to say, oh yeah, somebody's going to have to unplug this card a half a dozen times. This connector's designed to be plugged into once and then it sits there. And if
in a clothes dryer, yes,
yeah,
exactly.
And in a clothes dryer, while there might be some vibration with a clothes dryer, it's not going to be anything like driving down a rough country road.
Right.
And honestly, even driving down some of these rough city roads that we have. So that connector would be something that gets compromised, and there's no way you could know ahead of time.
It looks like our guest might be here. Mike, are you there?
Yeah, so I think Jesse is going to grab him right now.
Okay.
He just said, he opened the door and said something about Mike, so.
Okay, so it's probably one of our staff.
So probably that Mike is here, but he didn't know how to get back here to the studio because, the guys out here, the social media guys, have really impressed on how well they're getting things organized back here in the studio. We were joking about it though, Pete. If you come in the front door, it looks like a bad storage cabinet.
It does, yes. And Mike is with us.
Yeah,
all right.
So
Yeah, our guest has arrived, so.
Mike, we've got a headset for you here. We've got a microphone.
Okay,
great. I'll unmute
Welcome.
this.
Yes.
Black and white
There you go.
and red. Okay.
Yes, welcome, Mike. Glad to have you here today.
Thanks.
And yeah, it is unmuted. We're live. And again, I'd like to introduce Mike Maloney. He's one of our customers. He knows more about Roadsters than maybe even Tesla some days, I think. He's been a long-time Tesla Roadster owner. And we just found out you got your first Roadster in 2011. Is that right?
Yeah. I had a 2010 Roadster first. And then a kid lost control of his car up in the Malibu Mountains and hit me head on at about 50. And then I found an almost identical Roadster that was actually, I purchased the second one used, and I'm still driving. I just drove it in just now, but it was great back then. It was like a private club. For about a third of the country, the guy that fixed your car was Bob, the parts department was Vince, and the guy that ran the dealership in Santa Monica or West LA, California, was Mike. And that was your experience of Tesla. 3 guys.
Oh, sure.
And then all of the Roadster owners got invited to all of the Tesla functions, like the unveil of, I was at the unveil of the Model S, the Model X, the supercharger network, the battery swap, which never came to pass, and several other events at the Hawthorne Design Center, which is right next to SpaceX. So when you're driving in, you're driving past all of these. There's open hangar doors with rocket engines sitting there. It's very cool. And back then, Elon Musk would he'd do the presentation on stage, and afterwards he would just step off stage into the crowd. The parking lot would have like 100 Roadsters in it. And Roadster owners would fly in from all over the world, from Saudi Arabia and Japan, and for these events. It really was a very private club, and you could go up and talk with Elon Musk. It was great. I met him a couple of times. Very shortly. I hate to impose myself on anybody. Once you've got some fame, people want to latch on to you, and so I always kept it brief, but
you had an accident, and it was remarkable. I saw pictures of it. You actually walked away from this, and it looks like the side of the car is ripped out. Maybe you can talk a bit about that.
Yeah, well, I had just pulled out of a parking lot, and I was doing about 25 maybe, and some kid had been racing down this canyon, and there was a hairpin turn that was just like an absolute 180-degree hairpin turn, marked 25, and he entered it probably around 60.
Okay.
And I didn't know it until I got the police report. But there was another car involved because everybody said he was going down the canyon, passing everybody like a maniac. So I think what happened was the last car that he passed, he didn't give enough room to be able to slow down for the turn. And he lost control of it going into the turn, bounced off of an SUV. I didn't even see that part of the accident. I thought it was just a 2-car accident, and it was actually 3. And so he comes out from behind the trees, and I'm just about to, I'm 100 feet from maybe 200 feet from the hairpin turn, and he comes out from behind the trees, semi-sideways in the middle of my lane, and he hit me doing about 50, 55 miles an hour and just ripped the entire driver's side of my car right off. Luckily, it was offset just enough so that my frame rail caught his car and guided it around me. And the Roadsters, that modified Lotus chassis that they're on, has big, thick aluminum extrusion side rails. And then there's a bunch of aluminum extrusions that go across that make up the firewall. But those, it guided me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Guided his car around me, and it distorted the firewall so much that it actually ripped the entire door jamb off. So the door was missing. And then his car actually brushed past my arm at 50. I had all of these bruises and scratches on my arm from the front of his car going 50 miles an hour or more past me. But I stepped out and I took the pictures of the car. It was the most violent 1/10 of a second of my life. I mean, 1 second, you've got this car that appears in front of you, and about a 1/10 of a second, you're trying to decide, is he going to miss me completely? Is he going to regain control, or is he going to hit me? And just at the last second, I just cut it over just a little bit, and that is probably what caught his frame rail and kept him from coming in my windshield. It could have been a lot worse. But it was, and then suddenly, my ears are ringing, and there's smoke coming out of the airbag in front of me, and it was really something.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Now, Mike, you're an author.
Yes.
You are an investment advisor, and you have a highly successful YouTube channel, and you're also very much convinced that this Tesla Roadster is something collectible.
Yeah. Normally, I'm a crisis investor. Back in 2002, Ben Bernanke gave a speech called Deflation, Making Sure It Doesn't Happen Here. And in 2004, I read it, and I completely changed my life. I got rid of the business that I was in. I opened a company called goldsilver.com, which is now one of the largest online precious metals dealers. And I wrote the best-selling book on investing in gold and silver. We're in Phoenix right now, where Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, lives. Mm-hmm. And so my first book was Rich Dad's Guide to Investing in Gold and Silver. Recently, I just finished The Great Gold and Silver Rush of the 21st Century, and it's currently the highest rated book on Amazon that's in the monetary history, economics, precious metals sector. And I'm out of them right now on Amazon. But we made a video, you and I, about you and me, about the Roadsters. And I actually, every time I mention Tesla or Elon Musk on my channel, I get all this hate mail. Yeah. It's just amazing how polarizing it is. And so I don't do it very often because my mission is the economics and teaching people how the economy works. And once you've got an understanding of it, I believe that you've got a better chance of doing well. And I've got a YouTube channel with 112 million views, and a third of those are a series called Hidden Secrets of Money, where I traveled the world and shot in 18 countries. In the first episode, I'm in front of the pyramids, and the second one, I'm up on the Acropolis, and the final ones, I'm in the Rome and the Colosseum and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I show how what they did in the past reflects on what we're doing today and how it's going to affect your life, that it's just history repeating, and this stuff happens over and over again. But with the Roadster, I think that my viewers think that I'm showing off toys, and I'm not. These are investments. I've got one Roadster with 347 miles on it, and I'm not going to, I might put a mile on that car,
Right.
but it's not a car that I'm going to be driving around and enjoying. This is a serious investment.
And we're certainly never going to test drive that car.
Okay, thanks. But you're going to maintain it and make sure the battery's in great condition. Because this one has the best battery you've ever measured, right?
Yes.
The best non
The CAC.
3.0.
Yeah, non
it's-
3.0. Yeah, legacy
yeah.
battery pack CAC.
Yeah,
It's
right.
amazing.
Were we? Is that the one we were talking about yesterday, where somebody took that car and drove it to a service center to have a TPMS sensor fixed?
He drove
ended
it
up-
40 miles each direction,
Yeah.
so 80 of the 347 was just to get the tire pressure sensors replaced.
You should have saved that sensor, the world's most expensive TPMS sensor, right?
Right.
Oh
right.
yes, oh yes. I thought that was a great
So
story.
the car would have had less than 300 miles on it, and but I do believe that that's going to be a multi-million-dollar car one day, and here's why. A decade from now, there's going to be about 10 million Tesla owners. And everybody that owns their Tesla loves their Tesla. Just about everybody. It's like 99% customer satisfaction. It's higher
It's a
than
cult.
It's
Yes.
a cult. It is a cult. Now, according to the Federal Reserve, 1 out of every 10 people has more assets than the other 9 people combined. The Federal Reserve, since Ben Bernanke, since 2008, we've had this bifurcation in society that's all caused by, that speech that he gave in 2002 laid out all the things that the Federal Reserve could do once they reached the zero bound. Japan had been trapped in deflation for many years, and he was saying that we're not out of bullets. We could do this, 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 and this. And I go, oh my God, this is a roadmap to the future. And then he became Fed chairman, and I knew what he was going to do in a crisis, and I prepared for it. And that's where I made most of my financial gains, was during the crisis of 2008. I really made some huge gains while everybody else was having huge losses. And so they've caused this bifurcation and made anybody that owns financial assets very wealthy at the expense of everybody else that doesn't own. It's transferring wealth from when you increase the currency supply, and the way the Fed has to do it, according to the Federal Reserve Act, is purchasing assets, and the only approved assets are like U.S. Treasuries, and since the crisis of 2008, they've been buying mortgage-backed securities, but they have to buy those on the open market. What that does is pump all that newly created currency goes into the stock markets, basically. And the correlation is, if anybody wants to see this, get my book, Guide to Invest. I'm sorry, The Great Gold and Silver Rush of the 21st Century has all of these correlations in it. But it's astounding that the Federal Reserve was able to dilute the currency supply, give it to only one class of people, and it didn't cause retail inflation for all these years because it only went into the stock markets, and they don't consider that part. Stock markets and real estate, they're not considering in inflation. They do consider rents, but and so it all flowed there, causing this bifurcation. So now, 1 out of every 10 Tesla owners, so if you got 100 million, that's 10 million very wealthy Tesla owners that also love their cars. Now, I don't know what percentage of people are car people, but I think that it's probably greater than 10%. I'm not sure. It's at least 1 out of every 10
Fair
really
estimate.
likes cars.
Sure, yeah.
They're
Sure.
fascinated by them.
I've got the book
So,
up.
huh?
Oh, you got the book up.
Got
Oh,
your
okay.
little
There.
shout out
thanks.
for the book.
There you
Awesome.
go.
Yeah. And so now you've got 1 million Tesla owners that are in love with their cars, that are car people. And if only 1 out of 10 of those, then you have 100,000 people that are serious about actually getting a Tesla Roadster. Then you've got 100,000 people bidding on just the few cars that come up for sale each year. And then if we take that down to just 1%, so 1 out of every 100, wealthy Tesla owners that are in love with their cars, that are car people, are actually serious about trying to get a Roadster. You know, you've still, what is that, from 10 to 100? So that's 10,000 people. And, you know, like the 2.5, I think there's only 499 that came to North America. So what I see is that there's going to be a tremendous gain in all of them because of the number of people that want them. But then the Signature 100, Founders Editions, validation prototypes, and the 2.5s, I think, are going to do even a little bit better than the ones that are in the middle.
We're seeing that already, by the way.
If it's not a special car. But they've already more than doubled since 2019.
Yes.
And so we're on the way there. Now, I do think that, you know, if you look at the crisis of 2008, it started with Northern Rock in England, and then there was about a 1-year pause or something like that. And then we had Countrywide in the United States, and then there was 5 months, and we had Bear Stearns, and then there was 6 months, and then we had Lehman and Washington Mutual, and bam, 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 they were just falling like dominoes suddenly. Well, we've had Silicon Valley, Signature, and First Republic in the United States, and then shortly thereafter was Credit Suisse. So I believe that things are more out of balance in our economy than any time in history. So I do believe that there is a crash coming up. There's going to be some serious opportunities. For years and years and years, I used to say, I am fully diversified. I own both gold and silver. So I think that there's a dip coming up. And I also buy Tesla stock, not just the Roadsters. And so with the market crash, there's probably going to be a few extra Roadsters for sale all at the same time. The prices may take a dip. It's a good idea, if anybody's interested, to try and pick an extra one up. I just believe there's never been a setup like this in the history of collector cars. And collector cars have done very, very well over the past several decades.
Oh, sure.
And then on top of that, you've got the fact that this is one of the 4 important cars in history that changed the entire automotive. It introduced a technology that causes a fundamental change in the entire automotive industry. Carl Benz introduced the Benz Patent Motorwagen in, I think it was 1887, 1886, a little 3-wheeled tricycle with a 3/4 horsepower single-cylinder engine, no muffler, vibrating and making all this noxious fumes and stuff. He sold 25. That started the automotive industry. The next most important car was the 1908 Model T. And go to Wikipedia and look up the number of American automotive companies, and you will see that there were 1,300, more than 1,300 automotive companies before World War I. The vast majority of those were put out of business by the production line technology. If they couldn't afford to install that, they died. And so the next most important car after that, I have to digress a little. If you go back to the year 1900, now these facts have changed. Wikipedia used to say that electric cars were more than 50% of all the cars registered. And now other sources are showing that steam and electric were both about the same at about 40% each, and internal combustion was 20%. And the reason that this car that was 1/3 the price of an electric car and could be refueled on a trip, although there were no gas stations, you had to find a hardware store that sold gasoline.
Yes.
But 1/3 of all internal combustion motor vehicle owners ended up with a broken arm sometime or another from cranking their car, and it would kick back and break their arm. And then I believe it was 1910, the best friend of the chief engineer of Cadillac stopped to help a lady. He was driving his electric car. He stopped to help a lady who had stalled on the side of the road that was driving an internal combustion car. He cranked her car, it kicked back, it broke his jaw, and he died a month later from an infection. And so the chief engineer of Cadillac, working with Bendix, an engineer named Charles Kettering, developed the automated starting device for the internal combustion engine, the electric starter. And the 1912 Cadillac is the third car that is one of the four most important cars in history, because that is what is responsible for killing off steam and electric, a fundamental shift in the entire automotive industry.
Mm-hmm.
It was 1928 that the last electric car company went out of business. 1932, the last delivery van company. But basically, from 1928 to 2008, 80 years, people tried to make a compelling electric car. And nobody could reach the right balance of price, range, performance, charge time, and battery life. And the Tesla Roadster was the first one to to get all of these just right, this perfect balance. And the public bought it for the first time, and that started Tesla. And everybody laughed, and General Motors and Ford and everybody, Mercedes, BMW, Volkswagen, Toyota, they were all hoping that Tesla would go out of business. But Elon Musk he's got balls of steel, basically. I mean, I know what it's like any entrepreneur knows what it's like to get to the end of the day and you're going, oh my God, if I don't figure out something, I'm going to be out of business tomorrow. And Elon Musk was in this position several times. And you don't sleep the entire night through, but the next morning you go to work and you've got a plan.
Yeah.
And so now we've got Tesla, and every car company on the planet is running as fast as they can to try to catch up with Tesla. But Tesla is accelerating away from them at a rate that's twice as fast as they can run. And so there is no possibility that any car company on the planet is going to catch up with Tesla. The full self-driving version 12 that you've already talked about that,
We
right?
talked about it.
Yeah.
We talked about it a little bit, yes.
A lot of excitement about that.
I mean, they just that wasn't just the most important moment in Tesla's history. This is a watershed moment for humanity, and they just leapt past Microsoft and Google as the leader in AI. And Wall Street completely missed this. They didn't understand it. The stock went down. So I bought some more Tesla stock. And the thing is, the version 11 had 300,000 lines of code of heuristics. The heuristics are the instructions. Red means stop, green means go, an octagonal red sign that says STOP, you stop and then proceed when everything's clear, give pedestrians a little bit of extra space, slow down for a speed bump. All of those instructions, their artificial intelligence became good enough to where they deleted all of that. And all they do is show millions upon millions of miles of humans driving correctly to the artificial intelligence, and it learns by seeing these videos and duplicates it. And so they've now created artificial intelligence that can navigate three-dimensional space, which makes their Optimus robot, I mean, it's the same card, the autopilot card or full self-driving card that's in my Model 3 is in the Optimus robot.
Yeah.
And so Wall Street keeps on analyzing Tesla as though they were a car company.
Right. Yep.
This is the idiotic thing. They just completely miss the fact that it's going to be, right now, Apple is the world's largest company at about $3 trillion market cap.
Mm-hmm.
And Tesla, the robotics division of Tesla, is going to be multiples of that. And then the power division, this Tesla Solar, is going to be multiples of that. And then the car company is going to be multiples of that. And in the car company, who is going to want to ride in a Ford, General Motors, Mercedes, BMW, Volkswagen, Toyota, if it is 10 to 100 times more likely to kill you, maim you, or kill somebody else? And once artificial driving comes out, Tesla Insurance is going to be able to drop your insurance really low. If you want to drive and take over, your insurance goes way up.
Yeah.
And so people are going to be penalized by the insurance companies for not using Tesla full self-driving. So very quickly, the world is going to adopt this. And there is nobody else to catch up with Tesla. What Ford would have to do, for instance, is drop 10 million new cars on the road today with 8 cameras each, 8 eyes that never blink, and collect the billions of miles of data. The reason 10 million is because Tesla is up to 4 million cars on the road, but they've been doing this since I had the 599th Model S, the signature 599. And that car had the cameras, and it had over-the-air software. I mean, I got in it one morning, and it had voice command and 6 other new features that it didn't have the night before. And other car companies still haven't figured that one out. And here we are, 11 years later, and they still have not caught up to Tesla on that one. So what I see is that Tesla will be many multiples the size of the second place company. It isn't going to be close like it is right now between Apple and Microsoft and Google. Yeah, I just see tremendous opportunity in both Tesla stock and the Tesla Roadsters.
Mike, question for you. This is a Roadster podcast, of course, and I mean, everything that you have presented is directly in line with that. You, I think, have the most highly evolved, modified Roadster that I'm aware of. Tell us a bit about what prompted that and what
we
kinds
need you
of
to
things
talk
you've
into
done.
your mic.
Yeah.
Okay, so, well, there were a few things that could have been improved on the car. And what I was trying to do was make it so that you wouldn't see any of the improvements. I did not want a customized Roadster. I wanted an improved Roadster. And so, the normal sound deadening and stuff, I took that to sort of an extreme. But I did things like, I'm 6 feet tall, and every time I get in the Roadster, I always want to put the seat back another 2 inches. However, the steering wheel is the right distance already from my body. And so that would mean a little bit of extra reach, but I would have been very comfortable with that. And I was always wishing that they had made the chassis just another inch or 2 longer to get the battery pack a little bit further back, make the cockpit a little bigger. And then while we were doing this, the modifications for all of the sound deadening, I discovered that even without brake fluid in the car, when you push the pedal all the way down to its limit and the accelerator all the way down to its limit, there's about 3 inches of space behind the pedals. And so I had them reformed to give me an extra 2 inches of leg room. And then the dead pedal was in the wrong place and the wrong angle, and we recarved this dead pedal about a dozen times to get it just at the right angle for my foot, so that it's very comfortable to drive now, even on a long distance. On long distances, with the accelerator pedal so close, I would develop a cramp in the muscle that pulls your foot up because of the angle, and now that angle is just right so that it's not fatiguing. I reformed the seats, and I removed about 3 or 4 inches. The headrests are tall. They come way up above your head, and they only need to support the back of your head in a whiplash. And the passenger side headrest obscures the entire lane next to you when you're looking in the rearview mirror. And in the rearview mirror, I noticed that you get a great view of the trunk lid. I mean, a lot. You can see the entire trunk lid on the car. And so I took some 1/8-inch aluminum extrusion and ran it across the bottom, just in the window. So the window on my car is only that you can see through. It's only about that tall.
Okay.
But inside, it's a speaker cabinet that's sealed, because the speakers in the stock Tesla, it's this plastic thing that bolts onto the seat belt cover, and it's open on the bottom. And so it doesn't contain any bass. The bass from the front and the back of the speaker cancel each other. And so it's not a great sounding solution. And I improved it, and I didn't take away any of the visibility. It was just dead space, basically. I installed radar detector and laser jammer in it that is... The readout is in the rearview mirror, so you don't really see it when you're in the car. There are the 2.5s have those shark's gills on the side of there's the grill, and then there's a little gill, and there's vents that actually go through there. And on Amazon, I found these little motorcycle headlights that would actually fit in there. One of the problems with the Roadster, I lived up in the Malibu Mountains, And it is this is where all of the car magazines go to test drive their cars. These are some of the best roads in the world. Just, mountain ridge, and then they're draped like a piece of spaghetti across this mountain ridge with bank turns, and just so much fun to drive. But the problem at night is that the Roadster's design, the headlights are set down inside the body, and it's the same problem that the Series 1 Jaguar XKE had, where there's no light that shines out to the side. So you come up onto a hairpin turn, and it's just completely black. You can't see anything, and you just turn in it and pray that there's road there. Now, I've got these, they're not fog lights, they're not driving lights, they're headlights that fill in that area just perfectly. They cross in front of the car. And right where the original headlights leave off, these new ones pick up. And so a whole bunch of little improvements like that. I don't like any reflection off the dash in the windshield. That always bothered me. It makes it's actually dangerous. I've got a picture of a Tesla Roadster with the tan interior, and the dash is done in the tan. And you can't see through the windshield in this photo because you're looking at the reflection of the dash. And even my black dash, when sunlight hits that semi-gloss, this one did not have the leather, but even the executive leather interior will. And I originally had, my first Roadster had the carbon fiber and executive leather interior, and I actually hated the carbon fiber on the inside of the car. It was too boy racer for me, but the reflections off of the binnacle for the speedometer, it would, at night, you're going down the freeway and there's these streaks of light going past you constantly. But anyway, I redid the dash in suede, black suede, so it would absorb all the light. But then I couldn't figure out, because I don't think Lotus is very good at aesthetic design. You put a Roadster next to a Lotus Elise, and the Lotus looks like a little toy of a Japanese anime cartoon of a bug. And the Tesla looks like this shark. And when people go, oh, it looks like a Lotus, I'm going, man, you don't have eyes. It does not look like a Lotus. This looks so much, it's got the same windshield and it's roughly the same shape. But it's so much better looking than a Lotus to me. I think it's just amazing. I think it's a hot-looking car. And I think the Lotus is sort of comical with too many eyes, and it's got a mouth inside a mouth.
Mm-hmm. Now, what other cars have you owned?
I haven't owned a lot of, I always kept everything in my businesses. Mm-hmm. And so I drove practical things, vans and things like that. Yeah. And I did own a 64 Ford Thunderbird convertible with the Roadster kit on it. They only made 400 of the tonneau covers that cover up the back seat. And it was in the most rare color. They only made 1.9% of the Thunderbirds that year in Samoan coral. And then this one had a white interior. So there were probably 3 made. Mm-hmm. And this car was a 2-time Antique Automobile Club of America Grand National First Prize winner.
Really?
And yeah. And I bought it restored. I didn't. Typically, anybody that restores a car ends up taking a bath when they sell it.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so if you buy a restored car, you're actually, it's almost like making a profit on the purchase.
Right.
I was at the Beverly Hills, the Greystone Mansion Concours d'Elegance, and Jay Leno was like the guest of honor, and he was like an hour late. So he drives in his he's the only one they allowed in after the event started. Right. But he drives in his Duesenberg, and he got out, and he walks right across the entire thing straight over to me and starts asking about that car.
Your Thunderbird.
So, yeah.
Cool. So you love Roadsters. You have 4 of them right now in our shop.
6.
6.
Yeah.
I'm losing
2
track.
red, 2
Sorry.
blue, 1 white, 1 silver.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're all 2.5s. And PEM upgrades, OVMS, the things that you do. And one of them has, like I said, 347,000 miles. I'm sorry, 347 miles.
Right.
And another one has just over 1,300, I think it's 1,314 miles or something like that. Those are the two red ones. And then I've got it's electric blue, right?
Electric blue,
Yeah,
yes.
electric blue with 4,800 miles, I believe. And then I've got two higher mileage cars that have 12 and 13,000 miles, and then the one that I've been driving since 2011 that has 30,000 miles on it. But it was my daily driver. I mean, groceries, everything. It was my daily driver when I lived up in the Malibu Mountains, and my Chrysler minivan was being used by my company. So, yeah, but...
So whenever we post on the Roadster matchmaking site, by the way, if it's a car that has pedigree, that is interesting, Mike's the first one I hear from, because we have that pre-qualified buyer list.
Yeah.
And, that's over 400 now, 420 or something
Wow.
like that. Yeah, people watch those cars, but you have very good taste because, the ones that you've purchased are definitely the type that I would like to purchase as well.
Well, thank you. I'm also looking for what is it that the future buyer, which is probably going to be a Tesla owner that's wealthy, that's a car guy, that's serious about it. So I want to know what is it that they're going to want in a Roadster, and that's what I am trying to go after. So I've got a couple of cars that I consider extra right now that I'm probably going to get rid of so that I have cash, and if another one that's super collectible comes up, I might buy it. But yeah, I see them as a tremendous investment. I don't think they're going to be, I know that like gold and silver, there's another leg to this crisis coming, and there are certain assets that are safe haven assets that everybody rushes to, and they have spectacular performance like gold did after the crisis of 2008. And so I used to keep all of my assets there. That was like my only investment for years. But now I'm doing something I call sort of a straddle, where I'm betting on the bright side of bright future for humanity, and then also betting on the crisis. And what happens in the crisis is you make huge gains suddenly, and then it's time to sort of rotate into things that are undervalued because of the crisis. And so that's my strategy, and hopefully I can pick up a few more Tesla Roadsters if there is this crisis and little dip in their price.
Mike, thank you so much for joining us, and our audience as well. What we'll do is we'll get to your questions tomorrow. We're way out of time at this point, but it was well worth it. Tomorrow we've got our standard EV broadcast, and we will probably entertain some of those questions at that time. Mike, again,
Okay.
it's been a pleasure.
Thank you
for joining us.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mike.
Okay.